To introduce myself, my name is Nicola Lauren. I attend school at Walls High School in DC, and this is my senior project on animation outsourcing.
My name is Diana. I worked in the LA animation industry for 5 years. I'm currently laid off from my projects, but my last role was production manager for a show at Bento Box Entertainment.
Hi, my name is Stacy. Del Socorro. I am the regional lead here for Asians Animation Philippines. So we are a global nonprofit organization. My full-time job, my daytime full-time job is I'm a video producer for a content creator. And then my what I do in my spare time is I go and network with animators, producers here in the Philippines. More of the producer to the pre-production phase of storyboarding.
That's pretty good for introduction, I feel like. So I'll just get into the questions. So, what is your stance on outsourcing in the animation industry?
Yes. So, my sense on outsourcing of the animation industry is that it's a very unfortunate position for U.S. workers to be in.
I would say it's a necessary evil because if it was $20 an hour and you can hire an animator here in the Philippines to be $8 to $12, what's the verdict, right? You won't give that person from the Philippines $21 if they can survive with just $8. I would say it's a necessary evil. You don't mention the rates.
Uh, does it affect you specifically?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that um, we are currently seeing whole productions outsourced. Let's say 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, you could have a production that was primarily in the US in the sense that it was it would have like pre-production and post-production done in the US, and it would have the production side, so like the actual like animating of each episode and stuff like that sent to overseas. What we're seeing now, like as of 2025, 2026, is that they in fact will put the entire production over to like Australia, to Ireland, to other countries. It used to be that because a production will be like US focused as for like the audience, there will still be a need for the pre-production, the designing of storyboards of characters and all that stuff to remain in the US, to cater to a US based audience. And nowadays we're seeing that that is actually becoming more rare. And what's more common is that they just do the entire thing elsewhere. Like the pipeline in the 2D animated TV industry heavily relies on outsourcing. And like outsourcing of the production side. And what's been happening since 2023 is that there's just an overall decline in available shows for people to work on. And that's across the board for 2D animated television. And um, it's honestly been very tough for folks to find work. And um, like part of that is the streaming bubble bursting. Part of that is like the residual effects of the writer strikes. Part of that is outsourcing. There was this belief among the streaming companies that they needed to get as much market territory as possible. There was a streaming bubble. It was that people were putting as much money as possible into the streaming sphere. So a lot of shows than what people could possibly watch were getting greenlit and they were getting put into production. And so everyone was trying to compete for this market share. In the end, basically in 2023, market shares were decided in favor of HBO, Netflix, and Disney Plus, right? What's left isn't sustainable for anybody else. So there's really no need for them to greenlight as many shows. But also because now that they've got the market share, They no longer need to compete.
Next question. What is the industry pipeline for outsourcing? Like, what happens when you receive a project?
We have a term here, it's called kanya kanya, which actually means to say you're on your own. So usually one of the things that it's very different compared to working with like local producers. For a lot of Americans, they like how independent sometimes on your own Filipinos or outsourcing artists are because they're like, okay, I finished the scene, but wait, I just gave it to you last week. Well, you gave me the instructions, you gave me the board animatic here. But just in case, they would usually sometimes give like 2 to 3 versions of an animatic. And then after that animatic is done, they give them more. And it repeats until maybe the required scene is over. I would say most of the outsourcing is usually, again, in customer support, software development. Usually there's accounting or finance and human resource.
Are there communication barriers between countries in the outsourcing process?
Certain companies prefer certain studios when they're working with overseas vendors. Usually, a company like that will have a relationship with certain studios. That studio might be in Korea, might be in the Philippines, might be in Vietnam. Like the overseas studios will have people that specialize in translation and specialize in communicating with our folks.
70% has a cultural barrier, but 40%, yeah. And it's because they don't understand sometimes. The biggest shock to a lot of Americans is actually the holidays in the Philippines. We have a lot of holidays here. They're like, another holiday again? Like in a month, we might have 3 holidays, 4 holidays. Yeah. And then they're like shocked because sometimes here, holidays are double pay. So if you're being paid here and you're working on a holiday, they're like, there's so much holidays you guys have, especially October and November. I'm like, yeah, we have a lot of holidays. So sometimes we have a week holiday. So just like we're being paid double every single week. It really is 70% the culture barrier, and also 40% of it is just the communications part of how their tech system functions. But most of the time here in the Philippines, they're kind of expecting you to already have your own gears. They're expecting you to have high computer, have a Wacom tablet. They're hoping you can provide it on your own because sometimes it's like the memory crash. Usually the communication barrier is like trying to extend the deadline if things don't work out. Sometimes it's because of the weather conditions here. But some customer support here, they get delays in internet. We call it here brownout, which is all of a sudden the entire building shuts down in electricity. So what they do is like, oh well, we can't work. And sometimes it's a typhoon. An American client, they're like, okay, I can just find somebody else to do it because the person is dead on the line for the entire day.
A lot of people say that outsourcing animation leads to like lower quality animations. What are your thoughts on this?
To the viewer, you wouldn't know if it's bad because the whole thing was outsourced or because the executive producer simply did not give a crap about what they were doing. So I think the average audience does not know the difference between outsourced work and not.
Most of the time it's a 50-50% of who you have as a producer and as a director. Or like for example, what happened to Jujutsu Kaisen season 2? Some shots were good, some shots were bad. We're like, why is the scene where Sukuna was in Shibuya, or some shots were terrible. We're like, why is this so bad? Deadlines can be tricky. Outsourcing, again, they do not communicate the technical resource to these artists. And sometimes artists lie. They don't say that they don't have any technical resource for it. So it creates a craziness to the producer of like, wait, you're just relying on your cell phone? All this time you're relying on your iPad to animate? So they're like, they're crazy that they will allow themselves to accept these projects And it's just because they passed the interview or they passed the test. So that's where the problem of not being in an office studio setting happens. It really depends on the budget of the producer and hiring good producers and hiring artists that do not lie. The three production triangle in film is quality, cheap, or fast. So if you want quality and fast, you pay more to the right people or veterans. If it's cheap and fast, it lacks quality. If you want quality and fast, then it's not cheap. And if it's cheap and has quality, then it's not fast. So you have to choose your war when it comes to the production pipeline.
Outsourcing benefits many developing countries through opening career pathways and economic opportunities, as you know. But at the same time, it also harms US animators. So do you think we should still continue to advocate against the practice of outsourcing?
I think that's not necessarily the right question. Because outsourcing is simply a symptom of the bigger economic landscape that we're in. It's not necessarily like the cause or the like ultimate step to anything. It is literally just a symptom. So I think like any advocacy that says outsourcing bad um, will have this kind of America first connotation to it. What comes down to is that U.S. animators don't have jobs, and um, like the the practice um, of outsourcing to let's I'm just giving an example, right? Like outsourcing to Korea, and then the Korean studio outsources to a Vietnamese or Filipino studio. This is not uncommon. This is something that happens like all the time. Who's actually making money, like making the big bucks, is like obviously the studio executives, and who's like getting cheaped out on their work, right? Is like still the animators in certain parts of the world. They don't have the same kind of labor protection that California has. I don't think outsourcing ultimately improves people's lives in the way that I think a lot of people would like to believe outside of US. I used to live in China, and I've seen Chinese people take the work that was outsourced, and then once your wage goes up, they simply go somewhere else. Right. I don't think it's a sustainable solution. I don't think um like it's a long-term solution. So
Do you think the workers are treated well?
Could get better, if that's the right word.
Okay, but okay.
It could get better because, like I said, there's night shift work, there's more development. I'm grateful enough that I always work often with producers where I've learned to say no. If they require me to be up 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and be like, oh, sorry, I can't do that. So, because I'm trying to take care of my health, I have experienced night shift work heavily where I'm at um where I'm up from 12 midnight to 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. my time. But a lot of animators or artists still continue to do it. So I would have to say it could get better.
Would you say that the deadlines that animators or just the studio in the Philippines undergoes is tighter than the one in America, or do you think it's about the same?
It's tighter. Yeah, it's definitely tighter.
What makes it tighter?
Usually you have to finish one episode. It might take you 2 months, 3 months maybe, or 1 month. Most of the time it is 1 month. Here in the Philippines, you're sometimes given 2 or 1 week to finish an episode. Veterans are really like an it factor to work with because, they've experienced hell in the deadlines here. So sometimes they have no sleep, and then they continue doing scenes, sometimes 2 days, 3 days. Do I find that that's healthy? No. But it really depends on the fact that they signed a contract. And I'm not speaking for my own veterans, okay? We have given them time to sleep.
Maybe a harsh question. Would you recommend aspiring animators to continue pursuing a career in the field?
If you're someone with a trust fund or some sort of family support that you can fall back onto, absolutely. If you're someone who's like, I gotta work and I gotta work all the time, I think it might be better to have a backup plan, um, so that there is a career you can fall back onto if the animation industry doesn't recover in time.
Feel free to not answer this question. Before you mentioned you were laid off, do you have a plan for your future currently?
I feel fun sharing that basically, I'm looking at both animation jobs and non-animation. Um, because I want to stay afloat. I want to do all the adult things.
What do you think the future of the industry will be?
Hard to say because it's so cheap to do things overseas. Let's say this tax incentive thing turns things around and we're able to have a future where media and entertainment are not controlled by one or two companies exclusively, then we all have a bright future ahead. But depends on policy, depends on the economy. It can be very rocky. Yeah, so there are indie studios, but a lot of them are not in the US.
Like, why do you think that we don't have as many animation indie shows in the US?
It's just very difficult to like operations that can be scalable
Yeah.
to a full size show, but also not have funding backed by like one of the big companies.
I can't mention a lot but I know the internal industry details of this. I would say there's going to be more anime than just Western animation. Outsourcing here, they still need a translator. So translators are paid more than animators. So I think there's going to be more artists here that are going to start to be fluent with Japanese because their clients are in Japanese. And I've seen it happen as well. So usually the artists are going to be going to Tokyo. They have their workshop or their three months there, and then they get fluent with what the Japanese language for animation are. They know what these terms are in Nippongo for business language. And
Alright, I think that's all my questions, unless you have anything else you want to say.
I always say in my language, amping, which means to take care. And I hope everyone does take care. So I think that is all.
It's been really great talking to you.
Yeah, so very nice talking to you as well. I'd love to keep up with you and see where your successes take you and all that good stuff.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun talking
Of
to you.
course.
All right. Have a good night.